My name is Violet. The day I accidentally eavesdropped outside the dining room door, my world collapsed. My parents and my sister Claire were talking excitedly, harsh laughter ringing out. Her wedding combined with my 10-year anniversary is perfect. Violet will cover all the costs, like always. I froze, my trembling hands pressing hard against the wall, feeling as though 10 years of sacrifice and endurance had been trampled in a single sentence. They had no idea I was right there, hearing every word, every laugh. And they had no idea that this time, I had prepared an answer. Have you ever been treated by your own family as nothing more than a walking wallet? If it were you, would you stay silent or fight back? Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe to the channel to join me in this story, where I turned pain into freedom they never saw coming. I went still in the hallway, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Claire's laughter still echoed in my ears, piercing, merciless. In that instant, an old memory dragged me backward, as if an invisible hand gripped my wrist and pulled me to the time I had tried so hard to bury. When I was 19, while my friends were joyfully preparing for sophomore year, I sat in my family's living room. My parents were in front of me, and Ethan, my younger brother, leaned against the chair arm, wearing an expression that mixed pleading with the quiet confidence that I would bend to their will. "You need to understand," my father said, his voice so deep it felt like a command. "Ethan has the chance at a partial scholarship, but it's still short a big amount. This is the stepping stone for his future. He is this family's hope." I still remember how tightly I clasped my hands together to stay calm. My old blue car, the one I had bought with 2 summers of part-time work, was the only valuable thing I owned. It wasn't just transportation to school and my job. It was the symbol of the small independence I had carved out for myself. But if I sell the car, I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady, I won't be able to work evening shifts anymore. The bookstore in the suburbs doesn't have a bus route that runs late. My mother folded her arms, her eyes cold. "Then quit. You need to learn to sacrifice. Ethan is the one who needs the investment right now. For a daughter, education isn't that important. Once you marry, what use will a degree be?" Those words cut into me like a blade. I turned to Ethan, hoping for at least a flicker of gratitude or hesitation. Instead, he smiled faintly, as if everything was already decided, as if what belonged to me had always existed to serve him. In the end, I signed the papers to sell the car. $3,000. Every cent went straight into Ethan's tuition account. As for me, I had to wake an hour earlier each morning to catch 2 buses to campus, and drag myself home on foot late at night after the bookstore closed. That was also when I lost my scholarship. Without the car, I missed shifts, my income dropped, and my grades slipped. My advisor pulled me aside, his voice heavy with regret. "Violet, you have potential. But you're not focused like before. For next year's scholarship, I can't help you." I didn't cry, but my chest twisted with pain. From then on, my life changed completely. Classes in the day, shifts at a cafe in the afternoon, grocery store shifts at night. Rent, books, every single dollar, I had to scrape it together myself. Meanwhile, every time I visited home, my mother bragged about Ethan's accomplishments, and my father beamed at Claire's career in law. Me, I was simply the good sister who sacrificed for her brother. At first, that label sounded like praise. But slowly I realized it was a trap. It nailed me into the role of the one who carries the load, forcing me to keep giving in, to keep sacrificing just to live up to the image they had created. I remember one dinner clearly when Claire got promoted at her law firm. The whole family raised glasses in celebration. I sat at the end of the table, exhausted from 3 shifts, my shirt still smelling of coffee. "See," my mother turned to me, her gaze half scolding, half lecturing. "Claire has brought honor to the family. Ethan is about to graduate with excellent grades. And you should learn to be happy for other people's success." I forced a faint smile, hiding the sting swelling inside. But deep down, a frail voice whispered, "And what about me? Will I ever be allowed to live for myself?" The following years, I kept pushing forward. I worked enough jobs to barely survive. While Ethan got a new car, Claire had an apartment with the deposit covered by our parents. Even when Ethan lost money in a bad investment, I was summoned home for the same tired speech. Family must share the burden. And as always, every eye turned to me, as though I were the family's spare wallet. That night, after selling the silver earrings I had treasured since high school to send Ethan money, I lay in my tiny rented room staring at the damp ceiling. I told myself, one day I'll break free from this cycle. One day they won't see me as the one who pays. But that one day never came. And now, standing outside the door listening to Claire and my parents' plan to merge my wedding into hers, the memories crashed back like a violent tide. All the times I was forced to yield, all the unfinished dreams, all the stolen chances, pressing down on my chest. I realized that to them I was never Violet, an independent person with the right to dream, to love, to be loved. I was only a name to put on the bills, the family's default carrier. In my head, my mother's old words echoed, "What's the point of girls studying so much? What matters is learning to sacrifice for the family." But this time, when I heard them call my wedding a convenient occasion to elevate Claire's celebration, one thing was clear: the old wound wasn't festering anymore. It was bleeding. And if I stayed silent, it would devour the rest of my life. I drew in a deep breath, my hands still trembling, but inside me a small flame had lit. After leaving my parents' house, I drove back to the small apartment I rented with Daniel. The familiar road suddenly felt endless. The yellow streetlights cast shadows across the wheel, while inside my head everything tangled like burned wires. Old memories and fresh fury mixed, leaving me both aching and numb. When I got home, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, still in his white shirt after a long shift. He looked up, his gentle smile appearing but vanishing as soon as he saw my face. "You ran into trouble there again, didn't you?" he asked, his voice worried, familiar, as if he had witnessed me return in this state too many times before. I didn't answer right away. I dropped my bag onto the table, pulled out my phone, and with shaking fingers opened my email. A few minutes earlier, sitting in the car, I had caught a bank notification about a new charge. I knew something was wrong. "Look at this." I shoved the screen toward him. Daniel frowned. $2,500 at a bridal shop? But you didn't order anything else. Right? Not me. My mother. You mean, your mother used your card? I nodded, my throat tight. Not only that. She ordered another dress. Not for me. For Claire. She said it was a matching gown, so the ceremony would look harmonious. Daniel set his pen down, leaning back in the chair, silent for a long while. I saw the veins stand out on his hand. "This isn't an accident, Violet. This is theft. And they think you'll never dare to fight back." You know what the funniest part is? They even sent an email to the vendors, stating clearly that I would cover all the costs. My name wasn't on the contract, but under payer, it said Violet Summers. As if I were their personal ATM. Daniel stepped closer and took my hand. "We have to go through everything. Do you still have that email?" I opened my laptop. The pale blue glow lit up my face as I scrolled through the chain of messages. Each word, each number felt like a slap. "Don't worry, Violet will pay. Let us sign the contract, but charge all costs to Violet's account." The budget list appeared. Venue $30,000. Catering $18,000. Flowers $7,500. Band $10,000. Wedding dress $5,000. Guest gifts $3,000. Total $85,000. Next to it, a bold note read, "All costs under Violet's responsibility." Daniel finished reading, exhaling slowly. By God. This isn't just taking advantage anymore. This is blatant control. Do you remember when I had to sell my car for Ethan? Or when Claire told me to pay for her apartment repairs because she didn't want to bother our parents? I thought after all these years they would stop seeing me as the family wallet. But it turns out, nothing's changed. It's even worse. Daniel squeezed my hand. "Violet, you have to stop. If you keep letting them push, you'll lose your entire future. But you don't understand. Deep down, I still want them to see me as their daughter. Not a pay source. I want just once to hear them say, 'Violet, you matter to us.'" He sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. "I get it. But some families, they don't know how to love except by exploiting. You can't wait for them to change while burning yourself in that fire." I listened to his heartbeat, letting his words sink in. Inside me there was both pain and clarity. At that moment my phone buzzed. A new email from Rosewood Event Management. My stomach dropped. I opened it. "We look forward to hosting the summer's wedding and anniversary celebration. As discussed with Mrs. Eleanor Summers, all costs will be covered by Ms. Violet Summers. Please transfer the $10,000 deposit by tomorrow. My hands trembled, but not from fear this time. It was anger blazing like fire in my chest. Daniel read it, then slammed the table. Enough. This is a legal contract. You never signed. If they force this, it's fraud. We're not letting it slide. You think they're doing all this just to throw a party for Claire? He frowned. What do you mean? I turned the laptop screen toward him, pointing at a small detail in an older email. In the financial contact section, there was an unfamiliar bank account. Not my parents', not Claire's. It was under Ethan's name. "Hi, brother," I whispered. "He's not only leeching. He's using this wedding to launder money through the company under his name." Daniel stared at me, his eyes wide. "Violet, are you saying money laundering?" A chill ran down my spine. "Yes. And this time they want me to be the payer, so if anything happens, I'll be the one who takes the fall." In the tiny kitchen, silence pressed down like a weight. I clenched my fist so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I knew from this moment on, it wasn't just a hijacked wedding anymore. It was a scheme, a trap my family had built. And once again they had chosen me as the sacrifice. I didn't sleep all night. The words, "all costs under Violet's responsibility," kept flashing before my eyes, mixed with the image of the car I once sold for Ethan. By morning I sat at the kitchen table, dark circles under my eyes, coffee cold and untouched. Daniel left early, but before he did, he gripped my hand tightly and whispered, "You're not alone. Call Maya. She knows how to dig into everything you need." Maya's name slipped from his lips like a reminder of light at the end of the tunnel. She and I had been friends since freshman year of college. When I dropped out, we drifted for a while, but our bond had never died. Now Maya worked as an accountant at an independent auditing firm, and I knew if anyone could untangle those numbers, it was her. That afternoon I sat in a small cafe downtown, fiddling with a latte I couldn't drink. Maya walked in, still quick and sharp, her brown hair tied high, her bright eyes full of the same sharp wit I remembered. "Good grief, Violet, you look like you haven't slept in a week," she said, pulling out a chair and setting her bag down. "Probably true," I laughed weakly. "Maya, I need you. I think my family is setting a trap, using my wedding as a cover to launder their money." Maya frowned. "Spell it out." I pushed my laptop toward her, pulling up the emails, budget sheets, and strange credit card charges. She skimmed quickly, her eyes scanning like a machine. When she reached the note, "all costs under Violet's responsibility," she sighed, shaking her head. "This is bad. But wait, that financial contact account at the bottom." Maya typed quickly into her accounting software. "The account name is Summers Holdings LLC. Registered owner, Ethan Summers. Violet, your brother set up a shell company." "Ethan? But he's still working at a tech startup." "Sure, but this company is different. It was registered 6 months ago. Office address? A P.O. box in the suburbs. Classic shell setup to move money with no real operations." She looked up, her expression grave. "Violet, this isn't normal family drama. This is a red flag for money laundering." A chill crept down my spine. I remembered all the times my parents pressured me to wire funds, sign papers, or help the family. Was it all smoke to hide something bigger? "Are you certain?" I asked, my voice trembling. Maya nodded. "Certain. This is the work I do every day. And I found something else. A withdrawal from your father's retirement fund, over $150,000, transferred straight into Ethan's company account." I buried my face in my hands. "Oh my God." Maya leaned closer, her voice low but sharp. "Violet, they're trying to turn your wedding into a legitimate event, to funnel the money. Lavish wedding, huge expenses. It all looks reasonable on paper. And who's named as the responsible payer? If this gets investigated, you'll be the perfect scapegoat." I sank back in my chair, my breath unsteady. "So, if I stay quiet and sign, one day when investigators come, I'll be the one explaining where the money came from?" "Not just explaining," Maya said. "You'd be seen as the organizer. In the eyes of the law, you'd be the one benefiting from those costs. Violet, this isn't about family taking your money anymore. This is life or death." I shut my eyes, hearing Claire's voice from the night before. "The combined wedding is perfect. Violet will pay for everything. In that triumphant laugh, maybe Claire knew more than I thought. Maybe she was another link in this game. What should I do, Maya? She gripped my hand. First, don't sign anything. Every contract must have both your and Daniel's signatures. Don't let them trick you into standing alone. Second, save every piece of evidence. Emails, texts, bank records. And finally, she hesitated. I think you need to brace yourself. Your family isn't protecting you. They're using you as a shield. I bit my lip until it bled. It hurt, but inside me sparked a new determination. That evening, when Daniel and I sat together in the living room, I told him everything Maya had uncovered. He listened in silence, his eyes growing darker. Your father drained his retirement fund to invest in Ethan's company? He asked, his voice hoarse. Yes. And now they want this wedding as a cover. If I'm not careful, I'll be dragged down with them. Daniel placed a steady hand on my shoulder, his gaze unwavering. Then we go one step ahead. Violet, you've carried the burden your whole life. But this time you won't carry it alone. I'll stand with you and we'll turn the game on its head. I felt like I'd been given new strength. I knew the road ahead would be full of thorns. But at least this time I wouldn't be fighting alone. That morning, the moment I unlocked my phone, the screen lit up with dozens of notifications. Messages from friends, coworkers, even former clients. Congratulations, Violet. The double event sounds grand. Wow, 300 guests. You're really going big. My heart pounded when I saw the link they sent. It was my mother's Facebook post. The Summers family is thrilled to announce a monumental event. The wedding of our daughter Violet combined with the 10-year anniversary of our daughter Claire, merged into one lavish celebration. See you at the Rosewood Grand Ballroom. Date and time will be updated. The attached photo showed Claire and her husband holding hands beside me and Daniel, a picture taken at a family party a few months ago. I had never agreed for them to use it. And below, the number of people who clicked going had already surpassed 300. My hands began to shake. Daniel stepped out of the bathroom and seeing my face frowned. What happened? I handed him the phone. He glanced at it, then his voice sank. They've gone public. Yes, I said, trying to stay calm. Not a single word asking for my consent. Now the whole city thinks this was our decision. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, Violet, they're putting you in a no-win position. If you object, people will think you're selfish and embarrassing the family. If you stay silent, they win by default. My fingers gripping the edge of the table until they whitened. Once again, I was being turned into a chess piece. A few days later, I went with my mother and Claire to a bridal shop. I didn't want to go, but my mother called non-stop, pressuring me to save face. Jessica, the friend helping me find a dress, was supposed to come but missed the appointment at the last minute. I knew it was my mother's plan, to leave me alone to face them. The dress I chose was simple, an A-line with delicate lace, exactly my style, graceful and not showy. As I turned slightly in front of the mirror, Claire walked over holding a glass of red wine the shop had offered. Oh, it looks fine, she said absently, her eyes sweeping from head to toe. But maybe a bit bland. Are you sure this is the wedding dress of your life? I was used to jabs like that. But seconds later came an unexpected movement. The glass tipped and a dark red stream splashed straight across the white fabric. Oh my, I'm so sorry. I'm so clumsy. Claire feigned alarm, but I caught the curl at the corner of her lips. I stared at the red stains spreading like a bleeding wound across the fabric. My mother rushed over, and instead of defending me, she set a hand on my shoulder, her voice sweet to the point of chilling. Come on, dear, take it as a sign. Maybe heaven wants you to wear a matching dress with Claire. That way, the ceremony will be truly harmonious. I stared at my mother, searching for a hint of regret. All I saw was cold calculation. I don't want to dress like Claire's, I said, my voice hoarse. Don't be stubborn, Violet, my mother said sharply. This is a special occasion. You need to know how to yield for the family's happiness. Claire chimed in, soft and fake. I want us to look perfect together. You're the younger sister. You'll shine in your own way. I bit my lip until it bled, refusing to cry. To them, I had never been allowed to shine. I existed as a shadow, a backdrop for them. That evening, as soon as I got back to the apartment, my phone rang. The caller was Ethan. I picked up and my brother's voice came through, sweet but loaded. Sis Violet, don't mess up the plan anymore. Mom said you still haven't signed the contract. Don't make it hard for everyone. Why should I agree? I asked bluntly. Ethan's tone dropped, turning icy. Because if you don't, Dad will cut you out of the inheritance. Simple as that. What do you think you have without this family backing you? I choked up. Ethan, the little boy who once clung to my hand when he was learning to walk, was speaking to me like a stranger issuing threats. Ethan, I said slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I've given you too much. My car, my scholarship money, my youth. But this time I have nothing left to give. Ethan gave a cold little laugh over the phone. You always think you're the victim, but you're just a tool. Tools should know their place. Sleep well, Violet. The call ended, leaving a freezing silence. After my mother's public post, Ethan's threatening call, and the glass of red wine Claire deliberately flung on the dress I chose, I knew there was no way back. If I stayed silent one more time, my whole life would be chained to their cycle of manipulation. That night, when Daniel came home from work, I sat in the living room with a thick stack of papers. He took off his coat and saw my eyes were red, though my face was strangely calm. You've decided, haven't you? He asked, his voice low but steady. I'm going to have a real wedding. Small. At the lakeside chapel Jessica mentioned. About 25 people. Those who truly love me, who truly love us. His lips curved into a faint smile. He pulled a chair beside me, his warm hand resting on the back of mine. I'm with you. If that's your choice, not theirs. I breathed in deeply, feeling a little lighter. Then I opened the folder and set it in front of him. Here's the harder part. I'll let them have their own decoy wedding. They want the Rosewood Grand Ballroom, 300 guests, extravagance. Then let them sign the contracts. But everything will be under their names. My signature will never appear on those papers. Daniel frowned. Are you sure they'll sign without you? Yes, I said, my eyes brightening. Because they're so confident I'll pay like always. If I pretend to hesitate and then grant them full authority to handle it, they'll seize the chance immediately. He leaned back and sighed. Violet, this plan is risky. But I trust you. And if this is the only way for you to get out, I'll stand with you. The next morning I called Maya. After I laid it out, she went quiet a moment, then let out a small laugh. Violet, you finally decided to use the brain of a chief accountant like me, huh? Listen, we need 3 things. Proof of credit card fraud, incriminating emails, and most important, the contract signed by them, not you. Can you help me? I asked, my voice shaking. Of course. But I need you to be strong. When they pressure you to sign, you must be calm enough to pretend to yield and then subtly step back. Let them feel confident enough to sign in your place. Once that contract has their ink on it, no one can deny it. If it all blows up, they'll come after me. Maya answered immediately, then I'll handle the rest. I know how to gather evidence and protect you. This is the only chance to flip the board. That afternoon, the family summoned me to a cozy dinner at home. I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway, head held high. At the table, my mother beamed and Claire set a thick file in front of me. Here's the contract with Rosewood, she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. Every detail is perfect. All we need is your signature. I pretended to hesitate, skimming through the pages. $85,000, itemized down to the last line. The name Summers appeared on the signature line, but the final signatures were blank. Every gaze fixed on me. I think it should be fine. But honestly, I'm overwhelmed at work. How about Mom, Dad, and Claire sign on my behalf like we discussed? I just want everyone to be happy. I trust the family. My mother's eyes lit up. My father nodded. Claire lifted her chin, signed neatly, then passed it to my parents to sign. Within minutes, the pages bore their signatures. None of them mine. That night, I went home and sent the scanned contract to Maya. She read every line carefully, her expression grave. Excellent. Violet, you just sidestepped the biggest trap. They've tied themselves up. Daniel sat beside me, his voice firm. So what's the next step? Maya closed the folder, her eyes brightening. We keep quiet. Let them believe Violet is still under control. At the same time, Violet, you prepare for your real wedding. I'll store every piece of evidence, emails, statements, recordings, safely. When the time comes, we'll expose it. Daniel squeezed my hand, his voice warm and steady. I've never seen you this strong. This is the real Violet. If they want to turn my wedding into a performance for their gain, I'll make it their final act. After that, I'll step into my real life. In our small room, we sat together amid contracts, documents, and the glow from the laptop screen. Outside, my family was probably rejoicing, certain I had obediently signed my life into their hands. The day finally came. Early in the morning, I woke up in the small room at the lakeside inn, sunlight filtering through the thin curtains, so gentle and peaceful that for a moment I thought I was dreaming. My heart was racing, not from fear like in the days before, but from anticipation, from a simple happiness I had never dared to fully dream of. Daniel was in the corner of the room adjusting his tie. When he saw me open my eyes, he smiled. "Are you ready?" His voice was low and warm, as if he wanted to calm even the most trembling corners inside me. I sat up, gently pulled back the curtain, and looked out at the lake shimmering with golden light. I've never been more ready than today. Meanwhile, I knew that at the Rosewood Grand Ballroom hundreds of guests had already begun to arrive. Tables covered in white linens, a towering champagne tower, a classical orchestra at the ready. And on stage, my mother, Claire, and Ethan were surely beaming, wearing the confidence that everything was under control. I picked up my phone and typed a short message in the family group. "Getting ready, running a bit late. Almost done. Don't worry." With 3 smiley face emojis like a fake signal. A few seconds later, my mother replied immediately, "Hurry up, everyone's already here. Don't embarrass us." I set the phone down and turned off the ringer. From this moment on, they would have to face the storm they themselves had created. By the lake, everything was a world away from that lavish chaos. The small wooden chapel with weathered tiles was adorned with wildflowers Jessica and Maya had gathered from a nearby garden. 25 of our closest friends sat together. No one rushing, no one scrutinizing. When I stepped out in a simple A-line dress, the space went quiet for a few seconds, then burst into sincere applause. Jessica winked and whispered, "You've never looked this free, Violet." Daniel stepped up. His hand trembled slightly as he took mine, but his eyes were steady and shining. The priest smiled kindly and began a brief ceremony. I heard each vow echo in the peaceful air, the wind rustling through the trees, the soft lap of small waves on the shore. And when Daniel slipped the ring onto my finger, I knew I had escaped the cords that bound me. At the same time at Rosewood, the scene was completely different. An old friend of mine, out of curiosity, secretly recorded audio and later sent it for me to hear. The orchestra had played the same waltz for the 3rd time. Guests began to murmur, "Where's the bride?" A woman's voice rang out. I heard they planned to combine it with Claire's anniversary. "But why don't we see Violet?" On stage, Claire whispered to my mother, her face beginning to pale. "Why isn't she here yet?" I texted her. My mother tried to smile and lifted the microphone. "Please bear with us. Our daughter is running a little late. It should only be a few minutes." But 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Guests started checking their watches. Some stepped out to the hallway to smoke, others huddled and whispered. The feeling of embarrassment swept over the opulent room. Ethan scowled and pulled my mother aside. "What is she trying to do?" "I told her already." My mother whispered, her voice urgent. "Maybe she's getting ready in a private room." "No," Ethan growled. "I know her. She's playing at something." By the lake, I had no idea how angry they were by the minute. All I had was Daniel beside me, Maya smiling in a blue dress, and Jessica capturing each moment with her old camera. When the priest declared clearly, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," I heard applause thunder mixed with cheers. The wind tossed my hair, and the sunset poured over the lake, bathing everything in a radiant gold. Daniel held me and whispered, "We did it, Violet. We won." I nodded, my eyes blurring, but not with pain anymore, with a pure, simple joy. At Rosewood, my messages kept them waiting. "Almost done. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Guests began to lose patience. A cousin stood up, grumbling, "I drove 2 hours to get here and the bride is nowhere to be seen. Is this a joke?" Another sighed, "I think they don't respect their guests." Claire's face flushed red, angry and ashamed. My mother tried to smile, but her lips trembled. My father had already opened a bottle of hard liquor and was drinking steadily to keep calm. When the clock neared 4 o'clock, some guests began to leave. Whispers spread across the room, "There's something wrong with the Summers family." By the lake, we raised glasses of white wine and laughed under hastily strung lights that still glowed beautifully. No one cared about extravagance. People shared memories, times I had helped them, and this time they were here to witness me reclaim myself. Maya whispered as she clinked glasses with me, "They must be going mad at Rosewood. But forget them, Violet. This is the real wedding." I smiled, looking at Daniel, then around at the familiar faces. I had never felt such peace. Meanwhile, the Rosewood Grand Ballroom turned into a chaotic play. The champagne tower stood untouched, the orchestra stopped playing, and servers looked at each other, bewildered. My mother bowed her head and whispered to my father, "If Violet doesn't show up, we'll lose all face." My father gritted his teeth, "Not just face. The deposit, the contract, everything is signed. If she doesn't appear, the entire $85,000 falls on us." Claire panicked, "No, impossible. She won't dare. She always comes back." But this time I didn't come back. The next morning, urgent knocking sounded as I was tidying the leftover wildflowers from the lakeside ceremony. Daniel stepped into the living room and looked at me, alert. We both knew this would happen sooner or later. When I opened the door, my whole family was there. My mother with eyes dark from crying, my father's face flushed with anger, Claire with her chin tilted in arrogance, and Ethan with arms crossed, his gaze shifty but still trying to look defiant. My father spoke first, grinding out each word, "Violet, enough. Last night you turned us into a laughingstock in front of hundreds of guests. Now pay up. The remaining $79,000, you have to cover it." I kept my voice calm. "I don't owe that money." Claire snapped immediately, "Drop the act. You agreed to let the family sign the contract. Everyone knows you always cover the cost. Don't pretend you're not involved." I stepped back into the living room and gestured for them to come in. Daniel had already set a thick file on the table along with a small recorder. I pulled out a chair, sat down, and looked at each familiar face that now felt chillingly foreign. "Right. You signed the contract. But the signature isn't mine. Here is a copy of the Rosewood contract." I pushed the papers toward them. "The signers are Dad, Mom, and Claire. My name isn't there." My mother blanched. My father grabbed the file, flipped through the pages, then slammed it down. "You set a trap for your own parents?" "No. I simply let everyone freely do what they wanted. And you signed, so you bear the responsibility." Claire lunged forward, her voice shrill. "You're always playing the victim. Ever since we were kids, you act like you're forced into everything. In reality, you like being praised as the sacrificing sister. And now you come back to blame the whole family." Quietly, I pressed the button on the recorder. Claire's voice from the day before played back, so cold it made even me shiver. "She'll pay like always. That's her role." Claire's face hardened, her eyes darting. Daniel spoke, calm but cutting. "This is lawful evidence. We've stored multiple copies. And there's more." He placed a stack of bank statements in front of my mother. The numbers were clear. Charges on my credit card, including the purchase of the matching dress for Claire. I looked straight at my mother. "You used my card without asking. That's fraud. And I have enough evidence to prove it." My mother opened her mouth but couldn't speak. "I also have an email from Maya, who helped me review everything. Dad's retirement fund was withdrawn, $150,000, and transferred directly into a company under Ethan's name. A shell company. And this combined wedding plan is just a pretext to legitimize that money." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Lies. That's family business. It has nothing to do with you." I didn't take my eyes off him. "On the contrary. You plan to make me the shield. If an investigation happened, I'd be the named payer. You wanted me to bear all the consequences." Ethan, who had been silent from the start, couldn't hold back and blurted out, "Yeah, that's right. If you had signed, everything would have gone smoothly. A grand wedding, my company without any holes. Everyone benefits. The only one who always ruins things is you." Everyone froze. That confession hit the table like a slab of stone. My father whipped around to Ethan. What hole? What the hell did you do with that money?" Ethan faltered, then snapped, "I was just cycling capital. The company needed money, so I created a fake expense. A lavish wedding looks reasonable to everyone. But he jerked his head at me. She refused to cooperate." Claire's jaw dropped as she turned to our mother. "Mom, You knew about this? My mother was silent, her hands trembling on her lap. Enough. I'm not a walking wallet anymore. I won't pay that money. And I've prepared all the evidence. If you keep pressuring me, I'll let the law decide. My father looked at Ethan, then at my mother. Claire gripped her water glass so hard her face went pale. I closing the file. These are the consequences of your greed and lies. Not mine. The real storm crashed down on the Summers household. First came the calls from the Rosewood Grand Ballroom. I wasn't in contact anymore, but news travels fast. My parents received an official notice. The remaining amount, nearly $80,000, had to be paid within 10 days or they would be sued. Claire pleaded, insisting my sister will pay, but the Rosewood manager calmly pointed to the contract. Clear signatures from my father, my mother, and Claire. Not me. 3 days later, the formal complaint was delivered to their door. The florist, the musicians, even the photographer all demanded payment. The total, according to Maya, made my head spin when I heard it. Over $100,000 with surcharges included. Worse news arrived the following week. Ethan received a summons from the federal tax authorities. The transfers from my father's retirement fund, then routed through the shell company under Ethan's name, had been flagged as irregular. Maya called me late at night, her voice equal parts worried and bitter. Violet, I was right. The expenses from the combined wedding were flagged. They're clearly an attempt to legitimize opaque funds. Ethan will definitely face a deeper investigation. And if they trace it, your father is implicated too. Maya, I can't save them this time. They'll have to face it themselves. One afternoon as I left the office, I saw Claire waiting by the door. Her face was gaunt, nothing like her usual polished look. Violet, listen to me. Her voice trembled. I didn't know what Ethan was doing. I thought we could hold a big celebration, make everyone proud. I never meant to put you in danger. Really, Claire? You didn't know? Then why did you say she'll pay like always? Did you ever truly think of me? Or was it all a curtain to hide your ambition? Claire had no answer. Meanwhile, my parents began to fracture. People we knew said they fought constantly. My father blamed my mother for spoiling Claire and Ethan. My mother snapped back. If you hadn't withdrawn the retirement fund on your own, none of this would have happened. Both turned on Claire. Because you demanded a lavish event, we sank this deep. Ethan was blunt. It's all on you too. You always made Violet cover everything. If you weren't used to doing that, no one would have suspected my company. The family that once boasted of being a model of united love was now a mess. I received a long text from my mother, equal parts reproach and pleading. Violet, you can't abandon the family in a crisis. Your blood after all. Help us pay this bill. Consider it preserving our honor. My hands shook a little as I finished reading, but my heart was calm. I replied briefly, I've kept quiet for too many years. This time the price isn't mine to pay. I didn't wait for a response. I knew she would cry, curse, and find a way to blame me. But I also knew the cycle had broken. One evening, Daniel and I sat on our apartment balcony, looking out at the city lights. He handed me a cup of hot tea and asked softly, Are you okay? For the first time, I don't feel bound anymore. They can blame me or turn their backs, but I know this isn't my fault. Daniel took my hand. I'm proud of you, Violet. You chose to stand up instead of staying buried. I looked into his eyes and a strange peace filled me. It took me years to understand something simple. Real family isn't always where you're born. It's where you're protected and allowed to live fully. In the days that followed, news of the lawsuit and the investigation spread through town. Those who once admired the Summers family began to whisper. The image of a perfect family shattered to pieces. A year passed so quickly that I still felt surprised looking back. My life with Daniel now fits inside a small wooden house by the lake, where morning light slips through the kitchen window and washes over the raw wood table we sanded ourselves. In winter, the fireplace warms the whole room. In summer, the lake breeze cools the porch and carries the scent of wildflowers. Here I can breathe, I can truly live with no burdens tying me down. Daniel likes to tease. This house is small, but the love inside is big enough for an entire world. I smile because he's right. It isn't lavish or loud, but every corner holds the quiet peace I yearned for all my youth. But I didn't rebuild a life for myself. After everything, I realized there are many girls like me, treated as the carrier in their families, forced to sacrifice without anyone asking what they truly want. So I started a scholarship called the Freedom Fund. The seed money came from my savings and contributions from a few trusted friends. We select female students in difficult situations, especially those whose own families have hindered their education. On the first award day, a short-haired girl clutched a thank you letter and sobbed, Violet, I never thought anyone would stand on my side. I thought my life would be all duty and no right to dream." I hugged her, and in that moment my own wounds felt a little soothed. "Daniel supports me always. He says, you turn pain into strength. Not everyone can do that. And every time I hear it, I know the choice I made back then, refusing to pay a debt that wasn't mine, was the best turning point of my life." One October afternoon, with a chill in the air, I was arranging wild chrysanthemums in a vase when I heard a knock. I had no idea who it would be, but when I opened the door I froze. Claire. She no longer looked so polished. The once glossy dyed hair now showed dark roots, and a thin layer of makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. She stood there with her hands clasped, her voice hoarse. "Violet. I came to apologize. Not the kind of apology that expects everything to go back to the way it was, but I need to admit I was wrong." I stayed quiet, studying her. A year ago, Claire could lift her chin and challenge me, treating me as someone who existed to serve. Today I saw exhaustion, collapse, and a hint of genuine fragility in her eyes. "I've lost a lot," Claire continued, voice shaking. "Reputation, friends, even my son's trust." He asked me, "Why were you so selfish?" I had no answer. I realized, I've lived my whole life standing on other people, even you. I listened to every word, feeling emotions I couldn't name. The old wound was still there, but the bitterness seemed to have faded. "Violet," Claire looked up, voice thick, "is there any chance to start again? Not like before, but a real, fair relationship between sisters." I smiled slightly. "You'll always have a chance, Claire. But this time, everything will be on my terms. I'm not the carrier anymore. If you want to be in my life, you'll have to accept the boundaries I set." Claire nodded as tears slid down her cheeks. Daniel stepped out behind me and rested a gentle hand on my shoulder. He didn't speak, but his eyes said, "It's your call." I turned to look at the lake. A year ago, this place witnessed the freedom I claimed. Today, it witnessed a new beginning, not one of sacrifice, but of limits respected. I turned back and said slowly, "If you truly want this, start with honesty. No more fake smiles, no more manipulation. If you can do that, we can try." In the evening light, her silhouette looked smaller than ever. But for me, it was the first time I saw a faint spark, a fragile possibility for healing. And I knew the road ahead was still long, but this time, I held the right to decide for myself. When the door closed behind Claire, I stood still for a long while, listening to the lake breeze whisper through the trees. Inside me, there was no anger or bitterness like a year ago, only a clear sense of the boundaries I had built. I knew that forgiving or not was my choice, and this time no one could force me to endure. Every family has cracks that are hard to mend, shadows outsiders can't see. But sometimes the act of stepping out of the cycle of sacrifice, daring to say no once, becomes the key that opens freedom and peace. What about you? In my situation, would you open your heart to forgive and give them a new chance, or choose to keep your distance to protect yourself? I truly want to hear your answer in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to follow the channel so we can continue together through more stories about family, kinship, and the hard choices in life. Maybe in each story you'll find a reflection of yourself.